Tom, I'm going to come to you first.
Yes.
What do you start thinking about the PR first, or is it what you're going to air? Is that the most important thing?
Well, we're always looking for new ideas and thinking about what's next and what's the next thing we can do on the show that we find funny and think that listeners will find funny as well. So we start with the idea. I mean, we know that we've got to make some noise, so there's always that in the back of our heads, but it's about the idea first. In particular with Dangy, the boys were talking on air about the world's shortest man. It popped up in the newspaper, and then it sort of snowballed from there. And then 2 months later, he was with us.
Jonesy, what's your starting point? The content or the stunt?
It's always the content. I don't think when I was young, when I was Ant's age, who actually is my son, it was all about, I think in your fantasy world, you imagine that the newspapers will write a story about you and the TV channels will write a story about you, but it never works out that way. If you actively go into a stunt hoping you'll get publicity, you won't get publicity. It's the stuff you don't want gets publicity, which is odd, but you try to control it, but you can't.
And Ant, I'll bring you in on that as well.
Yeah, I agree. I think you always start with the idea and try and make the radio good and then hope that it'll come. It's in the back of your mind. Like when you have an idea, let's shoot someone out of a cannon or kill someone, you think, oh, we might get press out of that, but you don't start with that idea.
I think, and I've got two examples. Years ago when I first started at WS, I did this terrorist hotline thing, and it was just a series of just fake calls to the terrorism hotline. And at the time...
How did that go?
Well, not as well as you would imagine, Tim. But it was fake. The whole call was fake. The person from the terrorist hotline was fake. So I didn't actually ring it. But then, because this was my first day on the job at WS, and there was a lot of complaints. And people didn't see the fun side of it. And there was a series of calls, and we panicked a little bit. Well, the people around me panicked a little bit and said, we can't play any more calls. And I said, well, these calls are getting more ridiculous. The first call sounds kind of real, but the next two calls sound ridiculous. If we don't play the next two calls, it's just going to say that it's going to sound like I'm pestering them. That got press, and it was people calling for my sacking, and that was very uncomfortable to have a newspaper article saying that I'm a goose, and it had the transcript of the actual conversation, which was kind of funny when it was written up. It looked comical.
Ralph, you, I guess professionally, probably more than anybody else in this room, just changes the dial all the time. As a listener, can you tell the difference between something that's kind of manufactured and something that's genuinely just been created as good content, do you think?
Yeah, I think the listeners can regularly. I think it's I mean the raison d'etre for a breakfast show particularly is to entertain. They've got the freedom to do anything as long as it's entertainment, pure entertainment, and the type of entertainment they choose depends on how well they know their audience and the audience they're targeting. So you can tell stuff that has been done for publicity, like the attitude, like the conversation would have gone, we'll get bad publicity, but is it worth it? I'm sure that conversation happens all the time, and you can tell as a listener. But as a listener, you think, if I like them and it's within the range of stuff that is relevant to me, then I'll let them be naughty. In fact, I'll want them to be disruptive. And that's what you hope for. And it's harder for a brand, obviously, to do something like that because there's so many other objectives. These guys just entertainment and to be talked about.
Tom and Fitzy, maybe this is probably a good moment to have a look at the slideshow, perhaps, and maybe I'll just get you two guys to sort of talk us through some of the publicity you actually did get.
Yes. So our coverage was really good. The day Dangy landed, it was covered on 7, 9 and 10, I think, Fitz, on the TV, and then it ended up that we got a lot of coverage internationally as well.
We were conscious the whole time about his welfare. Look, we thought if this was getting too tiring for him, we didn't want to expose him. But this was honestly, to see his face, it was an experience of a lifetime. We're going to show you a video in a sec. Whipper and I just did Green Day's Time of Your Life, and we actually got a bit emotional when we were putting it together. But you see in these moments in there where you actually see his face, where it just lights up, and he's smiling. And we were speaking to Dolik and also his translator, Sid Lama. And Sid said that he's spent a lot of time with Dangy and he's never seen his face light up so much. So this was a moment in a 72-year-old man's life where it was life-changing, and it was a great moment.
Well, this is a good time to play the video.
It started Sunday night with a greeting of hello.
Namaste, mate.
Sorry.
He shacked up at the start his journey undergo.
Koalas and our sharks, excitement in his eyes.
A new experience, a moment captured in time.
They said it was impossible, but we just said let's try. We hope dang he had the time of his life. A million photographs of your new mates that you found.
Your team, the Rabbitohs, a new member is crowned.
Meeting a class of kids to educate Nepal.
For what it's worth, that day you stood 10 feet tall.
It's something unpredictable when you got on that flight. We hope dang he had the time of his life.
Ladies and gentlemen, Dangy on the drums.
A trip that did affect us all, the friendship that we find. We hope dang he had the time of his life. They said it was impossible, but we just said let's try. We hope dang he had the time of his life.
One question I sort of asked myself when it was all beginning to kick off was firstly, this feels like it could be a bit exploitative, and secondly, is there actually some sort of PR crisis plan? Because as you say, he's 72. You know, I'm trying to think of a non-crude way.
If he drops off the twist.
What if he dies?
Oh, look, it was...
Short answer,
we were-
no.
No, well,
And what I don't mean is some sort of Weekend at Bernie's type thing.
No, he had travelled before us.
and he'd had... we made sure that he had 2 medical checkups before he came out to Australia, and he was given... It was the first time that he'd seen a doctor, and he was given a clean bill of health.
And marry Manuela.
Yeah, this was one we did a couple of years ago. Genuinely just met a 24-year-old Italian girl called Manuela at a pub, and she was really lovely. And she just said how much she's enjoying the country and how she would love to stay. So we literally just had this joke of an idea. What if we helped her find a husband? And then she stayed in the country. Now, not even realising how illegal that is. So we started innocently, for content, not for thinking we would get any publicity, marry Manuela. So we put the call out, would you like to marry someone, a beautiful Italian girl, she was very attractive. We did, the only rule was we had to decide how it all happened. So we found a short list of guys, all the dates happened at Macca's, different Macca's around the, it wasn't a sponsored thing. And we had the dates, we whittled it down to a pro golfer, like a normal guy. And then we had a classy radio wedding at Sizzler on the Gold Coast with Elvis marrying them. But what we didn't realise, see, we always intended to do a commitment ceremony. We just thought, oh, you know, we'll say we're marrying her and whatever. But people heard it, and it turned into a bit of a controversy because we were advocating, you're ruining the sanctity of marriage, and we were breaking a few federal laws. So Today Tonight called, and we thought, oh, surely they'll do a positive spin on this. So they came out, Today Tonight came out, and it was exactly like something you'd see out of Frontline. They were so nice to us. I'd never been interviewed by Today Tonight. They were so nice to us, all great, wonderful. They got shots of the couple walking down the beach. It was just perfect. Later that night, it was heaven. It was everything we asked for. The shot started off with, this young Italian girl has met the man of her dreams. It's young love walking down the beach. It freezes, goes black and white. There's a lightning sound effect. He goes, but it's ruining the sanctity of marriage. cuts to Elvis in Sizzler. And then and then us with our like radio station logo behind us, going, yeah.
No, Ralph, I suppose your stunt was of a slightly different nature in that you actually did get free PR through radio for your client Strepsils.
But, we're always trying to disrupt and entertain, but because it's a brand, it has to be relevant. And our client Strepsils wanted to promote the fact that you need to take Strepsils at the first sign of a sore throat, not just when you got a severe one. So we cast a bunch of actors around the country to call in talkback stations during the time that the campaign was running about take at the first sign of a sore throat.
Well, let's take a listen. We'll go maybe back for the first minute and a half or so.
Oh, sorry, mate. I've got a sore throat coming on. Sorry, mate. I'll have to have a Strepsil or something.
You're right. You're with us, Gary?
Yeah, I'm back with you, mate.
Okay.
I just wanted to make that point with you, mate.
Thank you, Gary.
Yeah, all right. Have a good one.
All right. Get your throat better.
It's an unpaid live read by the listeners as opposed to the presenters, and it wasn't designed for PR reasons at all. In fact, the only reason it became public was because you wheedled it out of me in a podcast.